Hey guys, this is such an important series. I'm getting ready to launch a series. It's going to be a 3-story series, but over more than 3 episodes. And it's on visibility. And I am interviewing couples who have the same sex assigned at birth. Okay, so genders might be different, but both same sex assigned at birth and their fertility journey, and then like the laws and the complications and all of the things. I learned so much from interviewing Katie and Jess, Emily and Amy and Steph. So I've got 3 different couples here to share their stories of fertility, of being a same-sex couple, same-sex assigned at birth couple, and what that is like with laws and society and fertility and all of the things. So we're going to get into the fertility journeys, which is really good for anyone who is facing a fertility journey or interested in IUI and IVF and transvaginal insemination. So over the next couple of weeks, you're going to learn a ton. And we're kicking it all off with Katie and Jess, part 1. What does a contraction feel like? How do I know if I'm in labor? And what does a day of labor look like? Wait, is this normal? Hey, I'm Heidi. My best friends call me Hides. I'm a certified birth doula, host of this podcast, and author of Birth Story, an interactive pregnancy guidebook. I have supported hundreds of women through their labor and deliveries, and I believe every one of them and you deserves a microphone and a stage. So here we are. Listen each week to get answers to these tough questions. Birth Story, where we talk about pregnancy, labor, deliveries, where we tell our stories and share our feelings. And of course, chat about our favorite baby products and motherhood. And because I'm passionate about birth outcomes, you will hear from some of the top experts in labor and delivery. Whether you are pregnant, trying desperately to get pregnant, or you just love a good birth story, I hope you will stick around and be part of this birth story family. Before we get started, I would love to have you guys in Birth Story Academy. It is premier childbirth education for your hospital birth, no matter what the birth looks like that you're planning. So medicated, unmedicated, a wait and see attitude, a belly birth, an induction, there is a module for all of it. And I have a blank name tag at your seat waiting to put your name on it. And the best part about Birth Story Academy is that I get to be your virtual doula. You go into my private Facebook group where I interact with you every single week and cheer you on as you plan and prepare for the birth that you want, no matter what that looks like. So I hope you will go to birthstory.com and enroll in Birth Story Academy today. Katie and Jess, welcome to the Birth Story podcast. How are you guys?
Good. Thanks for having us. We're so excited to be here.
I'm so excited too. So everybody, I'm just going to be fully transparent in this visibility series. Katie and I know each other. So Katie reached out. She was a fan and follower of the Birth Story podcast and then reached out when I put a post out for interns, for doula interns. And so Katie and I got to spend a lot of time together doing an internship for her doula business. And then I got to meet her wife, Jess. And Jess has a really kick-ass podcast. I'm going to let her tell you about that. And I got to be a guest on her podcast. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
All right. You got to be a guest on my podcast. That was fun.
Yeah. Well, let's start there, Jess. Tell us. Tell me.
Sure.
Tell everybody, who are you? Let's talk about this amazing podcast that you've got.
Sure thing. Well, I'm Jess Fertility. I run a web series and podcast and Instagram platform called Shit Moms Won't Say. I started in my backyard a little bit over a year ago, and it's just sort of taken off. And there's, influencer moms and celebrity moms and cool doula moms from North Carolina and, all kinds of great stuff. And the goal is really just to highlight cool people, who go by the name mom, doing cool shit. That's really what it's all about. And it's been amazing.
I love it. I mean, you guys, everyone who's listening to this podcast is a parent or soon to be parent. And I mean, I just really love your handle too, because
It's at Shit Moms Won't Say. You can't miss it.
and your Instagram's really funny. So I probably laugh on the daily about like the hysterical parenting stuff. That's just so real, you know?
Well, you stole what I wanted my handle to be, which was thanks, it's the trauma. But that's okay.
I did. I think most of the listeners know at this point, I do have my like passion podcast, Thanks It's the Trauma, where I talk about what it was like to be married to a man, have 2 kids, and then my husband transition to be my wife/partner as a transgender woman. And so if you didn't know that and you're just tuning in, there's another episode back in the vault about it. But there is the podcast, Thanks It's the Trauma. If we give it up, I will give you the handle. So
thank you. I just want it for like personal reasons. I don't want to do anything with it. I just want people to understand why I'm funny.
Yes. I mean, humor is such a coping mechanism, right?
Coping mechanism I have.
Yes. We're going to get into like all of those things. So Katie, tell us a little bit of, I mean, I already kind of disclosed that you're a doula, but there's so much more to you. So just share a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I am a doula. I'm a certified birth and postpartum doula and lactation counselor and childbirth educator. I kind of did those last 2 just to be a better doula. I don't like just do lactation or just do childbirth education. It's all like tied into my services. I'm only working as a birth doula right now. Our schedule, we're realizing it's easier for somebody to just step into my life and play my role for 24 hours than it is for us to find like a schedule like, 3 times a week, I'm going to be with you for 3 hours a day, you know, whatever the case might be. So really loving it and was so thankful to learn so much from you during the internship. So if you are a doula and you're listening to this, if you ever see Heidi put up that she's looking for more interns, you should absolutely take advantage of it. It's such a good learning experience. I also have a master's in psychology and applied behavior analysis. My pre-mom, pre-doula life, I was a behavior analyst and worked with people with disabilities. So that was, I think, learning how to communicate with all different types of people like helps me in my doula role a lot. So
having your master's degree would help tremendously for any birth worker. I mean, just having that like listening skill and then also like this ability to just be a true empath, you know? So I mean, I've never seen you in action, but through the internship, like I know you're a great doula. So that brings us to where the fuck are y'all so people can find you?
Yeah. So we're in New York. I am a doula. My handle on Instagram is Hands and Hearts Full Doula. You can just type that in and it will come up. Okay. the right one.
All right. And I'm going to link to it in the show notes. So Hands and Hearts Full Doula. And then for Jess at Shit Moms Won't Say.
And it doesn't really matter where I am also in New York, but it does not matter. You can engage with me whether you're here or not. I won't help you have a child.
Because you guys are married and you do live in the same place. And
we do. Yeah, we are married. We live in the same house.
Because I'm married and we live in different houses on the same property. So
you have a whole other thing going on. You know, that's different.
I know. Well, I'm really excited because really I hope that you guys will go and follow both Jess and Katie because you can get like the whole doula thing. You're here for birthy stuff. And Katie does really cool birthy, informative Instagram posts. And then Jess, I mean, you're here for a lot of things, Jess, but like the parenting hilarity is amazing. So we're going to get into your birth story with your daughter, Lily. And Lily is almost 2?
Yeah, she'll be 2 next.
She'll be 2 on Monday in less than a week.
Less than a week.
Yes. And
I 1.5, but it's a lie.
Don't age them up though, ever. Like just, she's 1.
I keep telling people, I have a 1.5-year-old, but like, she's not.
Yeah. Well, you still have another week.
That's right.
Exactly.
Right.
You do. You have another week. Okay. And am I sensing and seeing a bump over there?
Yes, we are having our second baby in March. So looking forward to that experience and to watch Lily become a big sister and all of, going from one kid to two, which is a nerve-wracking thought, but exciting.
Yes. Well, I have a lot of questions. Thank you for being my very first interview for two moms that are same gender identifying, but also same sex assigned at birth. And to be able to open up this conversation of what that fertility journey looks like to become parents through carrying, right? When there isn't, sperm involved, right? So now on this podcast, so many listeners have heard these long fertility journeys with cis hetero couples. And I hit my 100th episode and was like, how is this possible? I'm married to a transgender woman. And the way I've operated this podcast is that I'm just like, oh, someone writes in and says, I want to be on your show. And I'm like, sure. And then that's the next episode. But after I was enrolling in this podcasting conference and really getting intentional about where I want this podcast to go and the messages, I wanted to make sure that I did a visibility series and that I was really intentional and talking about fertility in a different way, right? Because at the end of the day, fertility is fertility, but there's a lot of ins and outs and nuances that go along with being two women identifying as women that are married and are same sex assigned at birth also. And so I really want to dig into that with you guys.
Yeah.
So thanks for being here. Let's start at the very beginning. How'd you meet?
Oh, we both perform as a hobby, and we met doing a show called Breaking Up is Hard to Do. It was a Neil Sedaka musical. And that was over 10 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. We'll be 11 years in March.
Yeah. And we're married almost 7 years in November.
Okay. So was this love at first sight?
For me, it was. I had the biggest crush on her, but she was with somebody else at the time, and I would purposely she would invite me to parties at her house. I would purposely not go because I didn't want to get my heart broken.
Oh, Jess, how were you feeling that whole time?
I was just being friendly. No, I thought she was great. I didn't really know her. And then we developed a friendship and I developed a little crush on her, and I was dating someone at the time, and I would never emotionally or physically cheat on another human being. So I just made this decision of we're going to be done and, let's see where this goes. And we were together pretty much immediately after that, and we've been together ever since.
Okay. So how did the proposal go?
That's all you.
I proposed to Jess. We knew we were going to get married. We were dating 3 months and we knew we were going to be married to each other. But I think we were together about 1.5 years, and we always would joke around will you marry me? I'm like, of course, that kind of stuff. And right before I proposed to her, I bought her ring and everything. And I was like, let me ask her more frequently just to make sure she really isn't going to say no when I do it for real, So
like a test push in the doula world. Right.
So I got us bagels from our favorite bagel store, and we still do write notes to each other, just leave them on things. Okay. And I put a note on her bagel. We went hiking and we had this nice view over the water, and she was reading the note on the bagel and I got the ring ready. And she starts eating.
I was hungry.
there's a picture of her with the ring on, with the bagel in her mouth.
Yes.
In my defense, thank you. It is our favorite bagel store. They're very good bagels, and I don't eat bagels super often. So I was it was a whole wheat everything bagel with olive cream cheese, and I feel that should be known.
We were 10 years younger. We were eating bagels a little bit more frequently.
I suppose I just wanted the bagel, but it was a very nice day.
So Jess, did you know this was coming? Were you okay?
No.
Okay, so you were totally surprised.
Yeah, I'm like a Neanderthal. I don't think about stuff like that. Like I didn't grow up being like, I'm going to get married, I'm going to have kids. Like that was never in my view of like life. And when I met Katie, I knew this was the person I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. I just didn't really know how to articulate like what that looked like, whether it was marriage or we were like, shacked up lesbians in a condo somewhere. Like I didn't really know what that meant. So when she proposed, I had no idea it was coming at all. None.
So instant yes after you took a bite of your bagel.
Yeah, I was, after I was full, I said yes. No, I said yes right away. I mean, of course, it was like the easiest answer I've ever given.
Oh, I love it. Now, if I'm doing my math correctly, 11, 7, year and a half. So you were engaged for 2.5 years before you got married?
Yeah, a little bit over 2 years we were engaged.
And that was like pretty intentional also. Like we were young. I'm what am I, 4 years older than you? So you're 30, what?
I'm 32.
And I'll be 36. So like we were just even at like different points in our lives and careers and things. And we were just really intentional about like taking our time. And we didn't want the wedding to be stressful. We wanted to make sure it was very us, and we like thought through everything, and we weren't like rushing to hire a photographer or any, nonsense like that. And so we can enjoy it. Which I still think we probably would never do that again. But it was a beautiful day. But yeah, about 2.5 years.
Okay. So then if I'm doing my math right, probably about, I don't know, a couple of years after that, did you just have a conversation about getting pregnant and having children? Like, take me on that journey of pivoting from like, okay, I'm on the top of a mountain and we're hiking and I'm proposing to you. And then a couple of years later, we're intentionally taking our time and getting married. And then now you're pregnant with your second child and you've been together for 11 years. So when did those conversations kind of start really coming to the forefront about parenting?
Before we got engaged, I knew I've always wanted to be a mom. So for me, that was a non-negotiable. So going in, even as young as we were, going into a committed relationship and, staring at marriage, like that wouldn't have worked if it was somebody who didn't want children.
Okay.
For me.
Yeah.
So we had those conversations prior. We knew what our goals were. We knew we wanted to, have a home. We knew I wanted to finish grad school. So we were almost 5, I guess. Yeah, 5 years. We had started trying. I mean, I think our 5-year anniversary was the year Lily was born.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting because everybody always says like there's no like right time to have a baby, and like that's sort of simply not true in like the lesbian identifying world. Like we were able to say like now is the right time for us to have a baby.
Yeah.
Our fertility journey, I'm sure we'll get into it, but like we were ready to do it when it happened.
Okay. So I love that you were just like about the start trying, because that looks different for everyone. So when you are in a queer relationship and in advance there's going to be a fertility journey, and I don't know if that's a gift or not, then, say me trying to have sex with my husband every month for 10 months and not getting pregnant over and over and over again, not knowing we were going to have a fertility journey, which we did have. So I was hoping that you could just tell me, like, what is that like to like that knowingness that you're going to have a fertility journey? And then I'm assuming you guys have to choose, right? Like, who's going to carry? And
that was always me.
Okay, it was always you. And that was like dating conversation too? Like, I want to be a mom and I want to carry?
Sort of.
I knew I wanted to carry. Jess kind of was on the fence and just kind of, I think maybe just in your mind, like, right, like that's what you do when you get married and have children. Like we're both going to carry because there's 2 of us. So like we may as well. She didn't really want to. And then, I don't know, you can talk about your own.
Remember I was like really upset about it. I got like really upset about it. And I couldn't remember because Katie had said to me, like, can I carry first? And it like totally threw me for a loop because I'm older. So like, again, like the norm would be like, I would carry first. And I remember getting like really upset about it and trying to figure out why am I so upset about it? And it was like, it was relief upset. I like felt upset that I just totally didn't want to carry a baby.
Yeah.
So I guess I just sort of like mourned the loss of that like normal thought that I had. And then just passed it over to Katie because I wanted nothing to do with it.
So that sounds hard, but then yet easy, right? That there was like it wasn't like relationship ending, you know, like who was gonna carry.
Right.
So then where do you even start? Like,
so the starting point for us was needing sperm. So we kind of talked about the known donor thing, ended up deciding that wasn't right for us. We really didn't want to have like, you know, like an uncle dad situation, you know?
yeah.
So we went on California Cryo. They're extremely pricey, but their customer service is impeccable.
Yeah.
They're so knowledgeable because you're calling, you have no idea what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
I don't know when I need this by. I don't know what to do with storage. I don't know anything. And they walk you through every step. So if you are a couple who's looking to use donor sperm, I 100% recommend California Cryo. They're amazing. You get free storage for a year. You can look at millions of profiles of donors.
Well, and I've heard, like, I don't know if this is true or not. We didn't really research too many other places. We felt very comfortable there, but I know with like California Cryo, you get so much more information, I think, than some others. Like we were able to see baby pictures, current, you know, adult pictures, like a total essay on who these people are. Like we knew everything about them, probably minus their name.
Yeah.
I feel like this is like dating on Hinge.
It's totally.
Okay.
Totally. Yeah.
Like I was like, where you're like swiping pictures and reading like the chosen information about this person. Okay. So going into this process of like sperm selection, did you guys have like some criteria that you like were filtering by? And if so, what was that?
We weren't really filtering. We had initially said maybe we should get somebody who looks like Jess, so that the baby would look like both of us. We got somebody who looked like neither of us, and the baby came out looking like Jess's identical twin. So who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah. Well, and we did find somebody who could have been like my twin brother. And I remember we like read his essay and we're like, this guy's such an asshole. Like we hated him.
Okay.
We hated everything about him. And then we found our donor now, and we were like, this is somebody who we'd be friends with.
Okay.
Really liked him. He's, you know, a theater guy. And, you know, we've obviously done some more research and know exactly who he is now.
I was going to say, it's got to be pretty easy in today's like
one Google image search. We know everything about him. We would never contact. It's not something we'd want to do, but we, you know, we were able to find out even more about him on our own.
Okay.
But yeah, it doesn't look like either of us.
Yeah, it doesn't look like either of us. And that's the donor. We use the same donor for this baby too. So baby number 2 and Lily will be like full biological siblings. Not that that was like as important to us as just knowing like I could carry a healthy baby with this person's sperm.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why we made the decision to stick with the same donor.
Okay, so let's simmer for a minute in this like sperm bank area, because this is where I have a lot of questions. How much did it cost to purchase a vial of sperm?
One vial is nearly $1,000.
Okay, now how many vials of sperm does one need to attempt to get pregnant twice?
The first time we bought 4.
We bought 4 the first time.
Okay.
The second time, Lily took 4 tries. We'll get into our fertility journey with a little bit more, but we had 4 vials. We were on the last vial. This was the last before IVF vial that we are going to get to use.
Okay.
And thankfully we got pregnant that 4th time. So this time I was like, I had in my head that it'd be the same. We better plan for 4 and plus, because I'm older and who knows, and what if it takes longer? Let's get 6. So we bought 6 vials.
Okay.
But now the cost of the vials is not the only cost that you're paying, because you're paying for the storage, you're paying for the shipping every time you call and say, you know, I'm ovulating, I need the sperm to come to the office. That's its own fee, plus, you know, the HCG shot is a fee, and it's a lot of money to have it.
And not to mention like the treatment itself. And I mean, I know like we were sort of chatting before about like what are some things that are based by queer couples, specifically to women identifying. It's, you know, the actual IUI itself is not covered by insurance.
So this is an interesting place to pause, just like as a queer visibility series, with lesbian couples in New York, even in New York, where we have as many rights as we're going to have right now. Fertility treatments are not covered unless you have a diagnosis of infertility. So you have to try 12 times before insurance will cover it.
And that's a federal law?
I'm sorry?
Is that a federal law?
I don't know.
It might be like a private insurance law, but like that's $12,000 just in sperm before insurance will even think about covering it.
And that's like the procedure and everything, and like the scans and everything, before.
Oh, hold on. I'm just getting angry really quick right here, because one could argue that the lack of presence of penetrative male sex is, in fact, infertility.
Well, our doctor agrees with that, and she did label us infertile because I am azospermatic.
Right.
Is what she labeled us.
She really did go on a limb for us.
Yeah.
And they still denied it?
No, I'm not going to drop her name because she fudged our insurance a little bit. She said, this is an infertile couple. They're an azospermatic couple.
Yes.
They didn't. Okay. She didn't go into why and how, but that was
what she did.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm also like an insurance twister here, okay? Because now my mind is turning. So now I'm like, okay, a year before you want to have a baby, I'm like, go to your OBGYN and midwife and tell them you've been trying for 6 months. They don't need to know anything more about you, about who you're trying with, and then get counseling on that. And then go back once a month and tell them still not pregnant. And then there's your diagnosis. Now disclose. But I mean, I think that would be a really interesting turn if you just documented, for a period of time, like proactively. Maybe you do this when you're 24 years old, and just proactively document.
I mean, we had been having unprotected sex for 5 years, and we never got pregnant.
So. Yeah, we kept trying. I don't know.
Documented. I mean, I think this is crazy. So does the insurance form, do do they ask for the sex assigned at birth of your partner? Fuck yeah. Okay. So there's...
They don't. You saw it? I don't remember seeing it.
Yeah.
That's how she was able to get away with it.
Okay. I love it. Hey, Jess, can you please get a shirt that says azospermatic? I mean,
that's very funny.
I'm ready for this.
I'm actually a little pissed off that I didn't think of that myself.
I mean, I'm dying. I can't wait to see your next meme on, your IG shit moms will say for this term.
I need an azospermatic shirt.
I mean, this is
important.
Amazing. Okay. So, but this is for people that are listening to this series because they want information, right? Mm-hmm. This is really important. Let's think about the ways in which we need to manipulate insurance to work for us rather than work against us. Okay. But essentially though, this was thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Okay.
And California Cryo is amazing also because, and we haven't done this yet, where, we want to always play it very safe, but you are able to return unused sperm.
Oh, okay.
So it's reduced, you don't get your full money back, but you are able to return after you get pregnant. So we're waiting until the baby is born.
I said I need a healthy baby in my arms.
And then we'll return the sperm.
I feel comfortable.
They do recognize that there is a huge cost associated with their service.
Okay. We'll dig into that in just a minute, but the overriding is that Lily took all 4 vials. And then do we have a nickname for current baby?
We have a full name for current baby.
We do.
Oh, is it free to just talk about or secret?
Yeah,
I'm cool.
We're not weird about it. We're naming her Amelia Grace.
Amelia Grace. Oh my God. It's so Southern, you guys, for 2 New Yorkers.
we're Southern at heart.
So Amelia Grace was conceived with the first. Okay, so now we have 5 extra vials. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, maybe how many kids do you want to have?
Done.
Okay, this is it. Okay, 2 are done. Okay, so hopefully we can get $5,000 back.
Yeah,
we'll probably get about $3,500 back, but I'll take it.
Take it. Fine. That'll pay for your doula.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, like that'll pay for
Exactly.
your doula and some postpartum care and placenta
Right.
encapsulation and all, all these things, these birthy things I like to talk
We're
about.
doing all of it. Birth doula, postpartum doula, encapsulation. We're doing it all.
All
And
of
it
it.
just got paid for with sperm.
Yes. There's another t-shirt. Give this to your doula.
Paid for with sperm.
My sperm refund. Okay, so you're at this sperm bank and you've now selected this donor, which now we know who this person is. But do they offer like open what would it, I'm not, like, adoption's not the right word. What is it called? Purchasing, adoption? What are you doing with the sperm? Are you buying it?
There's a word for it, right?
For an open, for it, I don't know.
It basically, I forget the term, but it's like, yes, like they'd be willing to have like a child when they're older contact, be like, hey, I think you, were the donor.
Okay. Did you check that box or no?
No.
No. Okay.
I know there are some people who there are literally groups on Facebook that like California cryo number, like blah, 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 blah. And like, you can find your children's, they call them diblings, like they're the dad's siblings or donor siblings.
Oh, okay.
So that's just not something that's on our radar. If ever either of our daughters wanted to have a little more information, we have access to it and we could certainly like facilitate that, but it wasn't like important to us. I mean, it just,
I get it from like a health perspective. Like if you wanted, like if either of them wanted to know more about like their health or their lineage.
But
like,
don't you already have that information?
We do. We have all of that. But if there was like a curiosity and they were old enough and I think, like mature enough to handle that, I think we would both be old enough and mature enough to handle it too. Yeah.
And I also think with things like 23andMe, I mean, like soon we're going to figure out that we're all related. And who everybody is type of thing. So does the donor have the opportunity to put, no, I don't want to ever be contacted? Okay. Yeah. So was that important to you when selecting a donor, what their choice was for that? No.
I couldn't even tell you if he did or he didn't.
Okay. So
we have like, there's like, they call it like a keepsake from the donor. It's just something he wrote.
Okay. So you guys said you went on like this feeling of like you could be friends with this dude, right?
Yeah, he is an actor and smart and just seemed kind. Like he was like his answers to things felt like things that we would say too.
Okay, was he, good looking?
He's very cute. It was more of like, we have such a tight knit group of friends and we have such like strong, wonderful, kind, straight male friends that we sort of said to ourselves, like, would this guy be friends with our friends?
Okay.
And we felt like the answer was yes. And because we didn't want to do something that was so close to home with any of our friends, we kind of knew what that could look like as an adult. So we sought that out in a donor.
I feel like that's really mature of you guys because I'm sitting here going like blue eyes, tan, like olive skin, maybe like blue eyes, but mixed race, and then like a master's degree at Harvard. I don't know. Is there anything on there about like intelligence?
A lot.
Things like that. Okay.
And that was actually, I would probably, that was a big one for us.
Okay. So I was like, I feel like I sound super official, but I'm trying to think like if I'm on like
there were some people that we were like, that nose won't work on a girl, or like, like
that guy's a moron.
Next. Okay. Do these donors, do you think they get paid more? Like if they're chosen more, like does the price of their sperm go up? Like they're really sought after sperm? No. Okay.
It's the same. It stays the same, but and like I don't know what they get for the donation itself, but it's definitely not as much as we pay for it.
I don't think there's like a royalty on it either.
Right.
Like I think that it's
a one and done.
Yeah.
Up one time, they get a fee and that's it.
Okay. Is there a threshold from California Cryo for how much sperm is allowed to be exchanged from one donor to multiple? Okay. Do you know what that number is? Like how many siblings?
25.
Dibblings. Sorry. See my words. I'm learning it. How many dibblings?
Dibblings. Yes.
Dibblings.
They do 25 as their max. Once the donor is down to 10, vials, they will only allow repeat parents to purchase those remaining vials.
So like we knew he was low when we purchased for Amelia, but we had access to it because we had a successful pregnancy with him the first time.
Okay. Gosh, I feel like that would be devastating if you had a successful pregnancy like with Lily and then you went back and there were no vials of sperm left.
You are notified.
Yeah.
When it gets low.
So I got an email right before Lily was born that like he was low on vials. So of course we're panicking. We're like, we don't even have one baby yet. Like, are we thinking about the next baby, whatever? But periodically, before we were ready to start trying again, we would call in, how many vials are we looking at? Like, how are we doing?
You were really on top of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So I knew if the number was dropping at all that we would have just made the purchase and pay for the storage for the extra, year and a half or whatever. But we were lucky and it was 10 every time we called. So nobody had purchased.
And then you took 6.
We took 6. So sorry.
Sorry. You're about to get 5 back.
There you go. Now, okay. Yeah. So now to the average person listening to this birth story podcast, they're like, if you're like me, you're like, is this in your freezer? But like, I'm assuming it's at a professional facility somewhere. So Is it stored in California?
So we're lucky. They have storage banks in different places in the US. And I don't want to I know there's one in California and I know there's one in New York.
Okay.
So ours are stored in New York City and we live on Long Island. So they were able with confidence, as long as we were calling between Monday and Thursday to get it to us in 24 hours. We had to have our procedure on a weekend, of course. Again, our OB is wonderful. She literally met me in a parking lot to give me my shot. And then the next day, came into the office. I was at a birth. She was at a birth. We both left. And she did my procedure. We both went back and had our babies with different people. So we knew it was on a weekend and it lasts in the nitrogen tank that gets delivered to you. That's
it's massive.
It's comical because the thing that comes out is so tiny, but you get the whole nitrogen tank and it's safe in the nitrogen tank for 6 days.
Okay.
So if you called on Thursday, they could get it to you for a weekend procedure.
So you got to ovulate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Can we get into that? Because you said shot and I'm like, what kind of shot? What are they putting in you?
So they are looking, you get with the procedure that we did, which is IUI, intrauterine insemination. They will check to make sure I was given Clomid from the first 5 days of my cycle to start making more eggs. So there's a slightly higher chance of multiples with that, which we were fine with.
Okay.
And then around day 11, 12, depending on how long your cycle is, they'll tell you. But around day 11, 12, they do a scan, an internal sonogram looking for eggs that are viable. So actually with both pregnancies, I had 1 egg both times. That was good. So it was okay, 1 or that's the one,
Here you are.
Then the next day they give you an HCG shot to force ovulation. So right around when you would be ovulating anyway, around that 14, 15 day on your cycle.
Okay.
As long as you have a viable egg, they'll give you that shot just to kind of make the egg pop out.
Okay.
Then the next day you'll go between 24 and 36 hours later, you'll go and have the insemination done, which is basically when you think about the turkey baster method, it is that, but it's more clinical because it's done with a catheter and it goes all the way into your uterus, not just into your cervix.
Okay.
They'll put everything through, you lay there for 20 minutes and you hope for the best.
Okay. Oh, so now I have I'm going to recap and then I have a lot of questions. So essentially you are fertile, right? So you are ovulating. You take Clomid to help with ovulation. Then
it helps you make more eggs.
Okay. So then around day 14-ish, you go get this sonogram and they make sure that you're about to ovulate or have a good egg, a good follicle.
Yeah, your egg needs to be larger than 17 millimeters across.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's not considered viable. So they won't give you the shot unless you're at 17 or higher.
That's big. That's a big egg.
The big egg.
So then, there's this egg and presumably it's going to travel, and they give you this HCG shot to stimulate that along. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, right. Am I tracking with you on this, what you just said?
Absolutely right.
I'm trying to just completely understand it. And then the next day or the day after, you go in, and can you just describe that insemination process?
Absolutely.
Did you ingest in my mind, I think if I would have probably just made out and wanted to I don't know. Okay. That's very medical. Okay.
It feels decidedly unromantic.
There's nothing less sexual than what happens.
Okay.
I will disclose that I know certain cervical mucus is better than others. So I did have some time alone with myself before.
Good. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was getting at, but I just didn't know if it was self-induced or if Jess was
it felt so clinical. It didn't really feel sexy there.
Well, and even the way we went about, Katie was I'm going to go upstairs because I need to masturbate before this procedure. And I was all right, I'm going to watch Top Chef. It's not.
Okay.
Your mom is.
It wasn't put Van Morrison on, light a candle, some Lana Del Rey, I don't know, and then go to town.
Maybe me downstairs watching Top Chef by myself, but certainly not upstairs where we were just trying to get through it for you to get to the doctor in time.
Yeah. Okay. So very medical. Is there anything that you would recommend that couples do at this insemination procedure to make it feel more comfortable and less invasive?
Having with Lily, Jess was with me for everything. So just the nerves and the anxiety, and that was nice to have your partner there, just feeling like a soothing presence and somebody you could joke with and can you hand me my phone? My legs are up in the air, taking funny pictures, things like that, just to lighten the mood and just keep you from thinking about everything. But I will say with Lily, when we were trying to conceive, that was our world. Those 4 months, and I know people have 10-year, 15-year fertility journeys, and I can't even imagine, because when you're in it, it feels eternal. 1 month of wanting a positive pregnancy test and getting your period feels like an eternity. So I can't imagine. These people have these years long journeys, but when we were trying to conceive, that was everything. What foods am I eating? Am I eating the right seeds at the right times of the month, and enough greens and this, and doing the yoga and this. And with Amelia, we didn't have that luxury. Our lives are, toddler moms now. So we're busy all the time. And for better or worse, we didn't really have a lot of time to prepare for it.
Which is probably why it worked on the first try.
Probably.
Absolutely.
There was just much less stress and focus around it. That's not to say that she's sloppy second in any kind of way, but I couldn't even go to the procedure with Katie because she was in the middle of a birth for, a client. So I was home with Lily anyway. So Katie ran out in the middle of the birth to get the procedure done and went back to me. And I wasn't even with her this time. It was just a totally different situation.
Okay. So were you at the hospital doing the birth as a doula then that your OBGYN worked at?
Yes.
Oh God, this is so cool. That's a news story, y'all.
She was
seriously.
At a different hospital, so she's in 2 hospitals. So she was in Brooklyn, and I was in Nassau. This is, Long Island geography, if you know that.
Yeah.
But we met at her regular office, and then both went back to where we were headed.
Please tell me your client had an epidural.
So I will say, my client on the day that I conceived was a magic person. She's just a wonderful, I couldn't have asked for a better person, more understanding. She was a lost mom. Her baby was a triple rainbow baby, I think. And when I got back, she had gotten an epidural, but when I left, she hadn't. She had no checks because she didn't want to know. She said it would be too upsetting for her if she hadn't made progress. I'm you've made progress, but I could just tell by her, her demeanor.
Yeah.
But she had gotten an epidural, and as soon as I walked in, she goes, what's really amazing? this is an IUI baby, and like your baby will be an IUI baby, and like there'll be a special connection. So like
She's
literally
amazing.
felt like she was just like my conception doula on that day, and I had nothing to do with her birth.
Oh, I'm like, this is like touching me at a very deep level. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. I just think the flexibility of your OB-GYN, I mean, too, like, I mean, absolutely unbelievable. I mean, this is just that is magical. I think I would love to interview that person on the podcast about their birth story. I think that would be really cool too if they were open to that.
Yeah, and they're a queer identifying couple too.
And she would be. She was on my show, so she would be.
Yeah.
She's great. She's amazing. She's super funny, super smart. She's awesome.
Yeah,
I've already cried now about part of her birth story and your conception journey. So one thing I wanted to mention right here is like how you just said, Jess, like you were just busy at home with Lily and things were just different. My work partner, Colin, from Doula Differently. And Colin is a queer doula, and she specializes in helping queer couples. And she was the first fertility doula in Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, most cities don't even have a fertility doula. So this is someone that you hire, and sometimes you pay them, and sometimes it's just volunteer because it's what their passion is and what they love. And then when and if you become pregnant, then you hire them to be your birth doula. They come with you. But Colin actually would be someone that would have gone and attended those appointments with Katie if Jess, you weren't available. And also someone who would have met with you that morning to nurture you through these different conversations and nurture you through those 4 months. So if anyone listening doesn't know that, type in fertility doula. That's an actual thing. And I didn't even know. 17-year veteran doula. I had no idea that was a thing until I met Colin. And I was like, you got it. So cool. Like you have a certification in fertility doula? Who knew? I mean, it's really, really amazing. So I wanted to make sure I put that out there. Okay. So 4 times with Lily. And so does that mean you just wait 2 weeks and then find out if you have a period?
Yep, it's the 2-week wait, classic 2-week wait, 14 days. And with the HCG shot that you get to help the egg come out, as soon as that HCG is in your system, you start having positive pregnancy tests because of the that's what a pregnancy test detects is HCG in your system. Okay. So they're giving you, I don't know the amount of milligrams or whatever, but it gives you a positive test right away. So with Lily, I had started testing it out around day 5. I saw that it was getting more faint. Around day 8, I think I took another test and it was pretty negative. Like I was like, there's like, I could pretend there was a line, but like, I was like, I think the shot's out of my system. The shot can last in your system for up to 14 days, but everybody's body metabolizes at a different rate.
Okay.
So a lot of times people, if they wait and they don't test it out, then they test on day 10 and they get a positive. They're like, well, is it the shot? Is it the thing? So with this particular try, this 4th time, everything was bad. My eggs were small. My uterine lining was awful, like barely like enough for the egg to stick. It needs to stick inside the uterine wall. I don't know. I read that if you drank pomegranate juice, it would help thicken your lining. And I got acupuncture because I heard that could help thicken your lining too. The day before and after my actual insemination. So I do think that was really beneficial for conception with Lily. Jess went on a work trip. She knew that I would be either getting a positive pregnancy test or getting my period while she was away. I had decided that if I had a positive, I was going to tell her I got my period because I want to tell her in person and do something special. So of course that, the best laid plan.
Didn't happen.
So that day 11, that evening, I took a test and it was positive, but it was faint. I was like, it's darker than it was on day 8. So no, it has to still be the shot. Cause I was convinced this is not going to work. We're going to have to do IVF. This did not work. I didn't have implantation bleeding. I didn't have anything. The next morning, I took a test just to get it. I just wanted to see the negative and stop thinking about it. I'm like walking around like, Lulu forgot that I took it. It was in my pocket. I'm like, oh, this is blatantly positive. This is a 2-line dark pink, like this is a positive test.
Yeah.
So now I tell Jess I've gotten my period and I'm like, universe, don't listen to that. Like I am just doing this to do a nice surprise. She was away for a whole week and I think she was coming home on a Friday. Thursday, I had some spotting. So of course, immediately I call her and I'm like, I didn't get my period. I had a positive pregnancy test, but now I'm bleeding, so I don't know. And she's like in a meeting. She's like, what?
I wasn't just in a meeting. I was in like a gala, and like with all of these tremendously successful Japanese executives who I couldn't turn to be like, do you mind if I take this call really quick? So I like sort of just like moonwalked out of the room to take the call to like, because she called me a couple of times. I was like, oh shit, like what happened? And she's just hysterical crying. And I was like, all right, I don't know what's happening. Like, because on a sensitivity, spectrum, Katie and I differ. And I was like, who hurt your feelings? Like who was mean to you via email? Like what happened? And she's hysterical crying. And I was like, you gotta spit it out because I have to get back in there. And she's like, I'm pregnant. And I was like, oh my God. Okay. And then we're like texting our other friend who just had a baby. And I was like, is this thing normal? Lo and behold, I found out you were pregnant in like the least
special,
fun or special way. But now we have like the most fun and special little girl. So it doesn't really matter.
That's right.
Okay, Jess. So you are, you're gone away. You're at this meeting. Now you're having a baby. Okay.
I'm having a baby. Yeah.
So now I have all of these questions about like paperwork, legality. Like, what does it look like to be a queer couple, married, legally married, with one person carrying? Like, can you kind of walk me through, like, are you automatically the other parent, Jess?
No. The legality is not, it's not pretty. I've talked a lot about it on my show because I think it's there's such a lack of education around it. So first of all, when your wife in this scenario, when my wife became pregnant, I sort of became like a second-class citizen in every sense of the word. Like, and our doctor is wonderful, but you do notice how people talk differently to Katie versus how they talk to you. And I'd imagine I sort of had more of the like quintessential dad experience versus a mom experience, which I get as like the non-birthing person. I understand there are certain things that Katie needed that I did not. And I know we're gonna, we'll talk about birth a little bit next time, but if we didn't have a doula, for example, I don't think I would have stayed at the birth. Like, we really needed this person to navigate on both of our behalves because the non-birthing parent is treated so differently than the birthing parent. And when it's a queer couple, it's extra. It just, and I don't have any rhyme or reason to it. I think that people expect the dad to have the dad experience and they sort of don't know what to do with the other mom. From a paperwork perspective, a lot of that comes post-birth. But there's two parts of it. So in the hospital, I am on my daughter's birth certificate. I am her legal parent. And our hospital was very cool. And then what was the actual verbiage on the paperwork? It wasn't mother and father. I think it was
parent and parent.
Parent and parent. So we really lucked out in that one. But there are many hospitals I know right here in New York that still say mother and father. So that's sort of like the first brush with what do I even put down? I didn't have to do that. Later on, though, and this is where like the education piece comes in that we've been interviewed around, like I've spoken about a lot, is the second parent adoption. Even in New York, we're fine. I am legally Lily's mother. Outside of New York, sort of like insert X, whatever state you would assume it might be here, that do not view queer couples as equal. I would have had before we did this, no legal rights to my own child, regardless of my status on her birth certificate. So let's say, God forbid, we're driving through whatever state this may be, we get into a car crash, Katie is incapacitated, I would have no decision-making power for my daughter. Let's say, even worse, Katie is, God forbid, killed. My daughter would go to my in-laws, who would then give her right back to me, you know, like, joke's on you, jerks. But like, legally, that's what it would have been. So I had to legally adopt Lily, regardless of my name on her birth certificate. So that process for us took over a year. Tons of paperwork, working with a lawyer who just totally didn't get it. All sort of resulting in a 5-minute court case where we felt, like, insulted.
It was insulting.
They got us on, they swore me in. They asked, what sports is Lily going to play? And I said, if she's not a theater person, like, God help her. And I remember Katie being like, stop it. And then, are you saving for college? Yeah. Okay. Congratulations. You know what I mean? So we
like
have
that. These are the things that define
that's
a good parent.
That's how you're a parent. So, we had all of this like mental turmoil around it, and really made to feel, for me anyway, Katie has a different experience in it as the birthing parent, but I know she has her own feelings around it. Like, for me, I was just made to feel very much less than in like the equation of my daughter, and like, my heart lives outside of my body, and that, heart is sleeping upstairs taking a nap. So for me to have anybody sort of second guess that from a legal perspective is really messed up. And I've had so many people reach out my way via Shit Moms Won't Say, to just say, like, I didn't even know that was a thing.
I didn't know that was a thing.
They didn't know it was a thing. So I'm happy to say it on here. Like, if there are people that have questions about it, please reach out to me. We've been through it. We're going to have to do it again with Amelia, which is crazy. You're not like grandfathered in as a parent. So
that is crazy. And that's budgeting
crazy, but
too.
The biggest thing with, like, the biggest piece of it that's most discriminating is that there are many, many, many heterosexual couples who have to use donor sperm. There's a male with, poor motility or low sperm count. So they have to reach out to a bank or whatever it is and use donor sperm. And that, male identifying parent is never questioned ever. From the moment of conception, that's mom and dad.
Well, and I know technically.
So they don't have to do this second parent adoption?
No. Well, listen, I think legally they could. We were told that by the social worker who had to come to our house to observe me parent to do this. She was amazing.
Jess, Jesus.
Oh, it was crazy. It was crazy. But that's why I'm always happy to share this info with people. But, Katie very pointedly said to her, do straight couples have to do this? She's like, well, technically, yeah. Basically, the bottom line is, from a legal standpoint, they could do it. They don't have to, because if you are in some, again, whatever state we want to talk about here, if you're in some state where something happens and heterosexual couples are, sort of the be all end all of what marriage should look like, they're never questioning it. Even from like a step parent perspective, which I have gotten into so many internet altercations around, that I've been called a step parent. I wrote an article about second parent adoption a while ago. And I had people come at me being like, well, you're basically a step parent.
No, an altercation would be the right word for like what I would have gotten into also.
Yeah, I think you and I should really start to tag team people, because it was not pretty.
Just always text me. Didn't we tag team somebody? Oh yeah, we did.
You and Katie did, and then I jumped on after and shredded, because it's just a hobby of ours. But
yes.
I wrote this article, and basically what I said was, a step parent is wonderful. They're beautiful people. They get on a train stop later in the journey. For me, I was at the port. I was like there from the beginning.
Right. Beginning as
I responded to this woman on Instagram and all different people like that. That's what I wrote about in my article. But to the people on Facebook and Instagram who had something else to say,
tell them to fuck off, because this
That's what I told them.
This was 11 years ago. Your first conversations between Jess and Katie on getting married and having children. Like, it's like sometimes I can't even see the other side,
Well,
it's
there is no the other side.
I mean, that's why, my brain, I'm like, I can't
isn't.
even understand where they're coming from. I'm like,
well, they're coming from those states where if my wife got killed, my daughter would go to my in-laws.
Well, it's that,
it's not true. You're right.
Yeah, there are people
here.
right here in New York that we know who made the step parent comparison. But and then the other big takeaway for us was we were entitled, we were fortunate and privileged to have the education around needing second parent adoption. Not every same-sex couple knows that. And we were in a place of financial privilege where we could afford our lawyer and we could afford the $300 fee from the social worker that I said to her, I when I get mad at somebody, I handle it very differently than Jess.
What do you mean?
So saying like those things like, oh, do same-sex couples have to do it? Like those, it's just like needling a little bit. So I said,
whereas mine is like an angry dragon.
Right.
It's a little different.
So I just said to her, I was like, what if we couldn't afford, I was like, we can, it's totally fine. But like, what if we couldn't afford $300 fee? Oh, well, I do some pro bono work. So, and I'm like, no, you're understanding. What if you came here, asked us for $300 and we said, we don't have that? Not everybody has $300 at the drop of a hat.
Right.
We weren't told that beforehand. We were told that when she was here.
Yeah. I'm going to jump.
We weren't even told about the social workers. I mean, our lawyer she was atrocious, but the social worker called me directly and just started having a conversation with me about what to expect when she came to my home to observe specifically me parenting. And I stopped her. I remember I was on a walk, I think by myself. And I said, were we together on that? Oh, all right. Well, I'm wrong. We were together. And I remember stopping her and saying like, hold on, like, who the fuck are you? Like, what do you mean you're coming to my house? Oh, well, your lawyer should have told you. Well, she obviously didn't. So what do you mean you're coming to my house? And this was mid-COVID. Like, I mean, obviously COVID is still here and exists, but this was like peak of COVID where
pre-vaccine.
We weren't seeing people. We weren't vaccinated yet. We didn't feel comfortable having somebody come into our house that we didn't know. But for me to adopt my own kid, we had to open our doors to some stranger social worker to have a conversation with our then 1-year-old who was going to tell you she likes Moana.
We
swing outside, which is what she screamed on the actual like court date. They made, we didn't know she had to be present for it. Like she had to be present during court. She's 1. Like it was all of this crazy stuff. And, God bless her, because as soon as the camera got on her, my mother-in-law was outside and she's screaming, Nana, outside. And they were like, okay, she can go. But like none of this stuff was told to us to begin with, which is why, we both devote a good portion of our platform, but I've sort of had my platform's a little different than Katie's in that I don't have a doula service, right? It's just different. I've devoted a good portion to helping educate others on it because it's such a kick in the ass every single time, especially if you don't expect it.
Yeah. So Katie, I think you and Colin are going to connect here on the fertility doula thing. I think it would be really powerful to add it to your services, or maybe for even Jess and Katie. I think it would be great if you guys had some kind of webinar or online course or something that was a mentorship for other queer couples, not just on like how to find California cryo and how to budget and save, but really how to navigate like what comes next after the baby is born,
And also how to make your experience as a couple trying to conceive, pregnant couple and a birthing couple, that it's equivalent for both of you, even though you're experiencing different things physiologically, that the day that Lily was born was just as big a deal for Jess as it was for me.
But to the people
in that room, of course it was.
But to the people in that room, it was a bigger deal for Katie than it was for me.
Right. And like how to kind of make those shifts in different things and how you talk to people and who you're using to help advocate for you to make the whole experience special for both people.
Yeah. I think, Colin and I both in our doula businesses, we work with straight couples, we work with queer couples, we work with all different types of identifying persons. And I think that part of our system and processes is partner inclusion. So even in my intake forms Like, Jess, if you were my doula client, it would have an entire section all about you where I'm asking you like, hey, Jess, do you have hypoglycemia? Do you have anxiety? Do you have a fear of needles or blood? Like, my intake for Jess is just as it is in depth as it is for Katie, because it's so important that when you're hiring a doula, that they're serving both persons, whether it's a birthing person, right? Or someone who's transforming and becoming a parent in that moment also, regardless of carrying. Same thing is when I support couples who have a gestational surrogate, right? And how like no one would ever do that. Like, let's put Katie, if in that situation, if you guys had chosen a gestational surrogate, right? Or a cis hetero couple had chosen a gestational surrogate. Like, no one's gonna, like, in the reverse of that, be like you're less of a parent because you had to have a gestational surrogate. I mean, I don't know. We could go on about this all day.
Right. Yes.
But we want to get into your birth story and also the ins and outs of the pregnancy, the appointments, from a queer couple's perspective of down to how you're treated at appointments, paperwork, and then birthing time itself. And I think that it's so important. So I'm really excited to dig into your birth story in part 2. Thank you for being part of the Birth Story family and listening to this episode. On Tuesdays every week are doula diaries, little snippets and tidbits from my week, along with some teaching and education. And then on Thursdays, we meet here for our birth stories and our expert speakers. So thank you for being here and listening to the podcast twice a week. And if you are left wanting more, like Heidi, I've listened to all the episodes, I've read your entire book, then I hope you will meet me in Birth Story Academy and let me be your online childbirth educator to prepare you for your hospital birth, no matter what that looks like. Thank you for listening to Birth Story. My goal is you will walk away from each episode with a clear picture of how labor and delivery might go, and that you will feel empowered by the end of your pregnancy to speak up,